Okay. So in last session, or maybe last to last session, we have started with the exception handling concept. Okay. Now we are clear with the definition of exception handling and also some keywords from the exception handling concepts. Like we have five major keywords: try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. Okay. So try keyword we already seen, catch also, then finally, and throws. Now only one keyword is remaining, which is throw. Okay. Now today we will be spending some time to understand what is a throw keyword. This is exception hierarchy. This is also done. After that, we have talked about type of exception: checked exception and unchecked exception. Okay. Do you remember what is checked exception?
Yes, ma'am. Check exception, check at compile time, and uncheck exception, check at runtime.
Okay. Okay. So checked exception means exception which is checked at compile time by compiler. Okay. So if you are throwing some throwing like the checked exception, then you always need to handle that exception using try catch block or by using throws keyword. Okay. If you are not handling it, then you will get the compile time error, right, for the checked exception. But if you have unchecked exception, then even if you are not handling that exception, then also there will not be any compile time error, because unchecked exceptions always checked at runtime. At a compile time, the compiler will not check for the unchecked exception. Only for the checked exception, it will check at compile time. Okay. Now, checked exception definition we already covered, and what are the checked exception? All like whatever subclasses like runtime exception and error. Okay, and their subclasses. If we just remove that one, then all other remaining exceptions will be checked exception, and unchecked exception will be runtime exception, all its subclasses, and error and its subclasses. All of these are unchecked exceptions. Okay. Now let's talk about some commonly used exceptions, or maybe very frequently you will be getting this type of exceptions. Okay. Very first exception is a class not found exception, right? So from the name only you will able to understand that class not found exception will be thrown if some class is not found. Okay, if you have like if you are not able to find some class, then that time this class not found exception will be coming. Okay. Now how, let's understand it. Let's suppose if I just close this, and if we come to the IntelliJ. Okay. So see here, currently we are in this exception handling package. Okay. Now let's suppose inside this exception handling package, if I create one class here, maybe class, and let's take it as a class, or let's take the class name as a demo maybe. Okay. And inside this demo class I have main method. Okay. Now see, let's suppose inside this session 2 class I want to use the demo class. So demo is equal to new demo. Okay. So this way we can create, or we can create the object of the demo class and we can use it. Okay. So what are the things I have done here? Only I have created one session 2 example class. Inside this session 2 example class, I am just creating the object of the demo class, and demo class is available here. I have created it. Okay. Now if we save this, save the program. Okay. And if we just go to the terminal. Okay. Now very first, we all know that when we compile the program, that time what will get generated? After the compilation, what will happen? Anyone remember the internal working, or maybe the execution of the program? Anyone remember? No? Dipali, Omkar, Nikunj, you don't remember what will happen internally when we execute the program? No? अनम्यूट तरी करा ॲटलिस्ट. मागे पुढे मागे सगळं म्हणजे विसरून गेलात का तुम्ही? निकुंज आहे का लक्षात? डॉट जावा फाईल पासून पुढे काय होतं हे आहे लक्षात कोणाच्या? कॅन समवन प्लीज एक्सप्लेन मी? दीपाली? Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Why you are not unmuting yourself? ऑब्जेक्ट फाईल तुमच्या लक्षात नाही. खरंच मला एकदम आता आश्चर्य व्हायला लागले की कसं काय तुम्ही विसरू शकतात. म्हणजे हे असं झालं की काय मागे पाठ पुढे सपाट असं काहीतरी आहे ना, ते तशा टाईप मध्ये झालं. आता हे मागचं सगळं विसरून जायचं आणि जे काल शिकवलंय ते फक्त आज लक्षात ठेवायचं. उद्या डबल कालचं विसरून जायचं. असंच चालू आहे का? जर तुम्हाला एवढं सिंपल गोष्ट लक्षात नाही राहते तर मग पुढच्या गोष्टी काय लक्षात राहणार आहेत? किंवा जे पण मी काही शिकवले ते आता मला डाऊट आहे की तुमच्या लक्षात पण आहे की नाही. एवढं जे मी टाइम स्पेंड करते त्याचा काय फायदा मग जर तुम्हाला समजा लक्षातच नाही राहते तर? मी शिकवलं होतं ना तुम्हाला की स्टार्टिंगलाच इवन मला वाटते फर्स्ट किंवा सेकंड सेशन मध्येच मी शिकवलं होतं की आपण जेव्हा प्रोग्राम लिहितो तेव्हा काय होतं, डॉट जावा फाईल आपण क्रिएट करतो, मग ती कंपाईल करतो, कंपायलरकडे जाते, ती कंपायलेशन झाल्यास काय होतं, डॉट क्लास फाईल जनरेट होते, ती डॉट क्लास फाईल आपण JVM ला देतो, मशीन कोड, हे सगळं शिकवलं होतं ना मी. आहे लक्षात काही? येते थोडं थोडं लक्षात की नाहीच येते?
येत आहे मॅम लक्षात.
म्हणजे तुम्ही मागचं रिव्हिजन नाही करत आहेत की तुम्हाला क्वेश्चन कळला नव्हता? सी, जे पण काही मी शिकवलंय ना ते तुम्हाला सगळं आलं पाहिजे. आपण किती टाइम स्पेंड करतो? इवन मी एक एक वाक्य ऑलमोस्ट 3-4-5दा बोलत असेल, राईट? तर तेवढ्यांदा बोलून मला कधी कधी असं वाटते की मी सेम 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 कितीदा बोलतेय. पण मी ते कशासाठी बोलतेय की तुम्हाला पहिल्या बोलण्यामध्ये नाही समजलं तर ऍटलिस्ट सेकंड टाइम मध्ये तुम्ही समजताल, किंवा थर्ड टाइम मध्ये जरी तुम्ही मिस केलं तर ऍटलिस्ट म्हणजे 4-5 पैकी 1-2 वेळेस तरी तुम्हाला समजूनच जाईल. असं कन्सिडर करून मी तुम्हाला एकच कॉन्सेप्ट ऑलमोस्ट 2-3दा सांगते आणि स्टील तेवढ्यांदा सांगूनही मी विचारते की तुम्हाला ते समजले का नाही. तुम्ही तेव्हा अनम्यूट करून ओके, अंडरस्टँड असं बोलतात आणि आता विचारलं तर तुम्हाला मागचं काही येत नाहीये. इवन सिंपल एकदम फर्स्ट सेशन मध्ये जो एकदम सिंपल फ्लो होता तो जर तुमच्या लक्षात नाहीये तर बाकीच्या गोष्टी कायच लक्षात असणार आहेत? ठीक आहे. let me just see if I have that diagram or something to refresh you. See, आहे लक्षात ही डायग्राम? आपण बघितली होती ना ही डायग्राम? फर्स्ट जेव्हा आपण जावा कोड लिहितो तेव्हा आपल्याकडे एक ABC किंवा कोणती जे काही तुमची जावाची फाईल आहे ती जावा फाईल असणार आहे डॉट जावा, राईट? as soon as you compile it, how to compile? For the compilation we are using javac command and then compiler will compile that code. Okay, after compilation if you don't have any errors in your code then that from that code compiler will generate a bytecode. Bytecode means what? Dot class file, right? Now this is the compilation task. Okay, once your java file given to the compiler will create the bytecode. which is your dot class file. Now this dot class file will be given to your JVM, right? Now, very first, this dot class file will go to the class loader. Okay, then that class loader will load that file. There is one person, we call it as a bytecode verifier. What this will do? This will verify that whatever bytecode you have sent, that bytecode is a secure one or not. Okay, if it is secure, okay, or if it is a valid bytecode, then that bytecode will be given to the just-in-time compiler, or maybe interpreter will interpret it. I have explained it very much detail. What is interpreter? Why this just-in-time compiler introduced? What is job of this just-in-time compiler? Everything I have explained. Okay. Now, after this, what will happen? Your code will execute. Okay. So, very first, to compile the code, we are using Java C, and to execute the code we are using Java. Okay, so these are two very much important commands we have already seen. Okay, are we clear with this, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
किती दिवस तुमच्या हे लक्षात राहील आता?
आता कायमच राहील.
ओके, लेट्स सी काही दिवसांनी मी विचारेल क्वेश्चन, बघूया मग. ठीक आहे, लेट्स सी. आता मी इथे कोड सेव्ह केलाय हा. ओके, नाव very first, whenever we are compiling the file, then what will happen? The dot class file will get generated. Okay, so here let's write here maybe cd and exception handling, right? Or let me just try java c demo.java. Okay, file not found. Just a minute. I think here we need to go to this file path. No such a file, ls. Okay, so cd com, then cd aj programming, and then exception handling. Okay, so now we are at exception handling level. Okay, now here we can write, okay, what is that? Clear. Okay, so once we are in exception handling package, then here I want to compile this demo class. So java c demo.java. Okay, what happened? File not found. Okay, let me create one file here itself. Okay, new file, let's give the name as test1, and inside the test1 let's create the main method, and in session 2 let's just delete this demo class. Okay, and here instead of this let's create the test1 test is equal to new test1. Okay, so this object I have created. Okay, now here let's try to compile java c test1.java. See here, now what happened? We have compiled our test1.java file. Okay, now if we just go here, okay, see here, are you able to see one file automatically generated? Which file? test1.class file. Okay, now we need to understand the exception. Which exception we want to understand? Class not found exception. Okay, so let's understand what is class not found exception and when this exception will come. Okay, so see here, we have compiled our Java program and .class file got generated. Okay, now if we see in the session 2 example, we are not getting any exception. If I run this program, let's suppose here let's create maybe main method. Inside the main method, let's try to create the object. If we save this and run the program, you will see that we will not get any error. Okay, and we will not get any output also, because we have not written anything like any method or any system.out.println statement in the test1 class. Okay, now what will happen? See, let's suppose if I just selected this file and deleted. Okay, so see, this file got deleted. Okay, now here if we go to the terminal and here if I try to write Java session to example, okay, dot Java, I think if we just compile it then also that error should come. So Java C, exception handling session 2. Oh, sorry, spelling mistake, one session we need to remove. Okay, see here, we cannot find a symbol. Just give me a minute. Okay, I want to explain you one concept, but first let me create that scenario. Okay, so let's suppose we have the session 2 example. So Java, or maybe even let's just execute this code now. Okay, so in the IntelliJ, when we are executing it by right clicking, okay, that time automatically this test1 class will get compiled and this test1 class will get compiled, .class file will get generated automatically. Okay, but what I want to explain you that if you have like session 2 example class, inside this class if you have created one test1 class and after compilation .class file will get generated, and if you are removing that .class file explicitly, okay, and after that when you try to use this test object, that time what will happen, the JVM will not able to find the .class file for this class. Okay, and because of that the class not found exception will come. Many scenarios, or when that actually in the real time also when that exception will come, if you see here in the external libraries, okay, whenever you have installed the Java we have different libraries, right? Inside the libraries if we just expand it, these are all files we have. Okay, so all of these are .class file or jar files we have. Okay, so if any of the jar file is missing, okay, that time that class not found exception will be coming. Okay, so that is the point which I want to explain, but here that scenario is not getting created. Okay, but I hope that theoretically you understood that when the class not found exception will come. Is it clear? Hello.
Yes. मैम ओनली .class फाईल नसल्यास ते एक्सेप्शन्स थ्रो करते का?
.class फाईल आणि जार फाईल्स सुद्धा. आता जार फाईल्स हा म्हणजे इथे जे आहे ते आपण एकदम कोर जावा यूज करतोय. ओके, सो मोस्टली इथं .jar फाईल किंवा जार फाईल्स आपण यूज करत नाही, पण when we work on the Spring framework, okay, so whenever we are using the Spring, that time to, like, mostly in the spring most of the task will be happen automatically by the spring. Okay, now how that task will be happen automatically, because they have created some jar files. Okay, and because of that jar files some task will be automatically happen. But if some jar is missing, okay, from your library, okay, that time you will get the class not found exception. Okay, so if some jar file is missing, then class not found exception will be coming. Jar or dot class file.
Okay, ma'am.
Clear? Or maybe what we can do, okay, just class not found exception oracle doc. You always need to follow this, okay, oracle documentation. Or let's go before. See here what it is trying to explain. Okay, you can go through this theory, but what it is trying to explain, whenever we create the database connection or whenever we create the JDBC connection from our Java application, that time what we do, we load the drivers, right? We need to load the JDBC driver. Okay, so for that time we use this for name method and there we pass the JDBC drivers. But let's suppose you have tried to you have tried to load the JDBC driver, but to load that you first need to add the JDBC dependency or the jar file for the JDBC, right? But let's suppose if that jar file is not present in your project, then you will get the class not found exception. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now otherwise I will create the scenario for you, okay, and then maybe I will explain it again. Now let's go to the next one. Okay, so very first one is class not found exception. Theoretically I have explained, but practical scenario is not yet created. So maybe in the next session I will create it for you and we will explain it again. Okay, now let's go to the second one. Second one is what? Null pointer exception. We have seen multiple times. What is null pointer exception? Can anyone just explain me if you remember when this null pointer exception will be coming? I have took 2-3 examples of null pointer exception.
एम्प्टी स्ट्रिंगची लेंथ फाइंड करताना
Empty string.
एम्प्टी स्ट्रिंग म्हणजे नल स्ट्रिंगची लेंथ फाइंड करताना.
Okay, okay. So the meaning is that null pointer exception, you just need to understand in one sentence. Whenever you try to perform any operations on the null, okay, then you will get the null pointer exception. Whenever you have something like not only the string, but let's suppose you have any other object and you have not assigned any value to that object, okay, and you try to perform some operations on that, then you will get the null pointer exception. If we just take the example again, you can see, let's suppose here, very simple example we have already seen. Let's suppose I have one string and I have initialized the value as a null, okay, and then here you are trying to perform operation to find the length of the string. So why the null pointer exception is coming? Because here the str value itself is null, and on null value you are trying to perform this operation. Okay, that's the reason you are getting null pointer exception. If we execute it, you will get the null pointer exception. See here, null pointer exception, and this is very dangerous exception. Okay, whenever you are writing the code, very first thing in your mind should be, we should never write a code which will throw null pointer exception. If the null pointer exception is thrown, then your application will be crashed. Okay, in daily life we have seen like multiple times the application will be crashed just because of the code which is not handling the null pointer exception. Okay, so always you have to like write a code in such a way that null pointer exception should always be handled. Okay, now the another way, or only like you can just see, let's suppose we have one object. Okay, let's suppose student is equal to, if we assign null here. Okay, and then student dot okay, let me just see first where is this class student. Okay, so this is the student class. Or what we can do, here itself let's create one class, give the name as a employee. Okay, and inside this employee class let's take one variable string name. Okay, and maybe let's take one more variable int id. Okay, we need to create the getter and setter methods for this. Okay, let's suppose generate getter and setter methods. Okay, for both the fields. So here I have created the getter and setter methods. Okay, now see, if we save this, and here if I just try to create the object of the employee, and here if I just try to assign the value as a null, and here if we try to access employee dot name. Okay, employee dot name, then what will happen? Okay, employee dot get name. Okay, so here what will happen, see, you have, even if you assign some value here, let's suppose Sheetal. Okay, and now if we just save the program and if you execute it, you will see that null pointer exception is coming. And why this null pointer exception is coming? Because this employee object you have created and you have assigned the value as a null, and on null employee object you are trying to perform the operation. What is the operation? You are trying to get the name of the employee. Even if you have assigned the value to this name variable, still you are trying to assign, you are trying to access that method or access that field by using get name method. Okay, of this employee object, and if you see this employee is null. Okay, so you should never try to perform any operations on the null. Okay, now let's suppose if you have such a situation where the like null pointer exception will be thrown. Okay, now whenever the null pointer exception is thrown, what is happening? Your application is abnormal termination is happen here. If you see here, exit code is 1. Okay, now how we can get rid of this situation? Okay, so whenever you write the code, you have to write like this. See, in the real time also, even I write this type of code every day. Whenever you have some list or whenever you have some object and there is a possibility that that object may be null, that time always, before writing any code, before accessing anything, okay, you need to check is that value null or not. If that is not null, then only go inside. For example, here I will be checking that if employee not equals to null. Okay, if employee not equals to null, then only try to get the name of the employee. Otherwise just say here employee is null. Okay, now what will happen? will that null pointer exception come or not? What do you think? Hello, can you just think about this? See here,
Exception.
exception will come or not?
It will come.
Okay, Dipali, Nikunj, what do you think? See, here I have created the employee. I have assigned the value as a null. When the null pointer exception will come? If you try to perform any operation on null. If you try to perform any operation on null value, then only the null pointer exception will be coming. Now, at which line I am trying to perform the operation? So employee is null and I am trying to perform the operation, or I am trying to get the name of the employee at line number 11. Okay. But before coming to this line only, I am checking that if that employee is null or not. See here, if employee not null, then only come here. Okay. Otherwise, don't come here, directly go to the else block and print this statement. Okay. So here we don't have the chance to get the null pointer exception because already null check we have provided, right? If we save the program and execute it, you will see that here there will not be any exception. Why? Because you have checked here, if employee is not null, then only perform this operation, otherwise don't go inside. Clear? Om?
Yes.
Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
whenever we are writing the code, okay, that time also we always need to write this way. Always we have to like perform the null checks to reduce the null pointer exception chances. Okay, so if you are writing this way, what will happen? Here you know that definitely null pointer exception will be coming if this employee is null. Then why to get in that situation before coming to this line number only? If you provide the null check, then you will not get the null pointer exception. Okay, so this way we can reduce the null pointer exception. Clear with this?
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Then array index out of bound exception. This is very simple one, and we have so many times we have got this type of exception as well. Okay, let me just remove this employee class as well. Array index out of bound. Okay, let's suppose we have here maybe integer array is equal to, and here let's just assign some numbers 1 2 3. What will be the size of array? What will be the size of array here? Array dot length. What will be the answer? Can anyone just answer me?
Two.
Okay, what will be the answer? Yes, Dipali, what will be the answer?
मॅम मी लेफ्ट झाले होते, नेटवर्क इश्यू होता समजलं.
Okay, no problem. See here, I have created one integer and I am just trying to print the length of this array. So what will be the answer? 2 or 3?
2.
2. ओके, आता मला काहीच कळना झाले मी काय करू. मला how the answer will be 2? First, Om, can you explain me why do you think that the answer will be 2? Just
Then
explain me
0%
whatever is
completed.
in your mind. Huh?
0 पासून काउंट केलं.
ओके, सो 0 पासून काउंट केला म्हणून आन्सर 2 आले. आणि हे दीपाली, व्हॉट डू यू थिंक?
येस मॅम, 0 पासून काउंट केलं, पण त्याची साईज 3 आहे मॅम.
वाय यू आन्सर्ड ॲज अ 2 देन?
First I will call means 0, starting 0.
Okay, then
फर्स्ट मी म्हणजे 0 पासून कॉल केलं मी ती 2 म्हणजे 0 1 2, पण त्याची साईज 3 आहे मॅम.
correct. But see, Om, for you also, see, when I think this topic I already explained you as well. See, whenever we are creating the array, okay, and when we print the length of the array, that time always length will be number of elements. Okay, length means what? Number of elements. And number means what? How many elements you have here? How many elements? 1 2 3. 3 elements are there in your array, so answer will be 3 always. Okay, now you don't need to confuse with that 0. Okay, 0 is come in picture when you try to access the elements from the array. For example, if you write here array of maybe array of 0, okay, that time what will happen? The 0th element array will get printed. 0th element means 0th means let me just open here that annotator. You both of you need to revise the concepts. Okay, you are just forgetting the previous things. See here, array we have created, and inside the array I have created first 1, then 3 and 4, and this is my array, right? So see here, the index will start from 0. So here 0, 1 and 2. So these are indexes, right? Index of the element. But size or length of the elements means how many elements you have. How many elements you have? 1 2 3, right? So length will be number of elements. So here always the answer will be 3. Now the index, which is 0 1 and 2. Why we use the index? Index are used to access this element. Let's suppose you want to access this 3 elements. So how you will be writing here? Array of, and what is the index for this value 3? So this 3 value is placed at index 1. So here array of 1. Then answer will be 3. When you are writing array of 0, then what will happen? Whatever is the element at index 0, that will get printed. So here answer will be 1. And when you are writing array of 2, that time what will happen? At second index, what is the value? 4. So here answer will be 4. Are we clear with this? Length and index, both are different concepts. Length means number of elements. Index are used to access the element or access the value, right?
Okay.
Clear
Yes,
आहे?
ma'am.
अजून any questions? काही questions आहेत?
No.
क्लिअर आता कन्फ्यूज नाही होणार ना?
नाही नाही.
ओके फाईन. नाव सी, कन्फ्यूज व्हायचं काही कारणच नाहीये. लेंथ म्हणलं की आपण युजली सी, इवन कोणाला जर समज आपण लेट सपोज आय हॅव 3 ऍपल्स आय हॅव गिवन टू यू, ओके, सो आपण काउंट कसं करणार? 1 2 3 असंच काउंट करणार ना, की 0 1 2 असं काउंट करतं का कोणी? नाही करत. काउंटिंग नेहमी 1 पासून सुरू होते, 0 पासून कुठलीच काउंटिंग सुरू होत नाही, राईट? Only to access it we have the index. Index is different, length is different. Length म्हणलं की डिरेक्टली 1 पासून काउंटिंग सुरू करायची. इंडेक्स म्हणलं की फक्त ॲरे आहे आणि आपल्याला जर एलिमेंट ऍक्सेस करायचे तेव्हा फक्त आपण 0th इंडेक्स, फर्स्ट इंडेक्स, सेकंड इंडेक्स असं का म्हणजे असं प्रिंट करतो किंवा असं आपण ऍक्सेस करत असतो. ओके, नाव सी, वी वेअर ऑन which topic? कोणता एक्सेप्शन होता? array index out of bound exception. Okay, so see here, array index out of bound exception means what? See, array index out of bound. From the name only you can see array index out of bound. Bound means what? Boundaries. Okay, let's suppose here how many index you have? 0, 1, 2. Out of bound means what? If you have 3 elements here, highest index is 2, and let's suppose you are trying to access here array of 3, means you are trying to access the element at third index. But do we have any index with 3 value, or do we have any third index here? No, right? Highest index
No,
is
ma'am.
2. Highest index is 2. Okay, now you are trying to access the third index, and that is not present itself. We only have here 3 values. Let's suppose here if you are trying to access array of 10, but we don't have 10 elements itself in this array, and you are trying to access the 10th element, right? So when you are trying to do such a things, then you will get array index out of bound exception, because you are trying to access the index which is out of boundary. Your boundary is now only till second index, and why you are trying to access greater than second index, right? That's the reason you will get array index out of bound exception. Are we clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear आहे?
Yes.
Okay, let me just show you here. Let's suppose I am trying to access the index at 5. Save and execute it. See here, index of 5 out of bound for length 3. You have only like length 3, means you have 3 elements in your array, and you are trying to access the 5th element. How is that possible, right? That's the reason index 5 out of bound exception will come. Clear, everyone? Now let's go here. Class cast exception. Do you remember class cast exception? Remember it? Class cast exception. आपण आधी पण पाहिलेला आहे, but still let me explain you again, because you almost forget all the things. Class cast exception. Remember in which concept we have seen that?
नाही मॅम, झालं नाही ना अगोदर.
क्लास कास्ट एक्सेप्शन झालेला आहे. जेव्हा मी सांगेल तुम्हाला आता, तेव्हा तुमच्या लक्षात पण येईल, पण तुम्हाला आता लक्षात नाहीये. क्लास कास्ट एक्सेप्शन ऑलरेडी आपण पाहिलेलं आहे. म्हणजे ती कॉन्सेप्ट नाही पाहिली, पण क्लास कास्ट एक्सेप्शन आपल्याला खूपदा आले, आणि इवन मी ते तुम्हाला एक्सप्लेन पण केलेलं आहे. ओम, आहे का लक्षात तुझ्या?
टाइप कास्टिंगच्या वेळेस
येस, टाइप कास्टिंग जेव्हा आपण बघत होतो, किंवा जेव्हा आपण हे बघितलं, काय म्हणतात त्याला, डेटा टाइप प्रमोशन बघितले, तेव्हा पण मी तुम्हाला कास्टिंगचं एक्झाम्पल दिलं होतं, राईट? जर तुम्हाला ही डायग्राम लक्षात असेल तर तुमच्या लक्षात येईल. लेट्स सपोज where is that diagram? This one. Remember दीपाली, ही डायग्राम आपण बघितली होती.
येस मॅम.
आणि ह्या वेळेला मी सांगितलं होतं तुम्हाला, राईट, वी कॅन convert from byte to char. We can convert from char to integer. But when you try to do the reverse from integer to character, then class cast exception will come. Means when casting is not possible. Casting means what? Cast means what? We are just casting from one type to another type, right? And when that casting is not possible, then you will get the class cast found exception. Or let me just show you that again, then you will understand it. But please, you need to revise all the concepts, okay? let me just explain you class cast exception here. Let's suppose, do you remember what is the highest class, or what is the parent class for each and every class?
Object.
Object. Thank you.
Object.
Thank you. Okay, so object is a class for, object is a parent class for each and every class. Okay, let's suppose we have string class. Okay, so string is a child of object, right? Now see here, string is a child of object. Okay, and let's suppose here you are trying to do a string, and here you will cast the object. Okay, see here, expression, sorry, let's suppose casting means, how to explain it, let's suppose I have one string str is equal to new string. Okay, and here I have object obj is equal to new object. Okay, I have created the string and object class. Okay, now here let's write here, or maybe here we can write object. And let's remove this. See here, incompatible types. This this error we already seen, right? Incompatible types means
Yes,
this
ma'am.
object is not compatible with this string. String is the child class and object is a parent class. Okay, so this is incompatible. But here we get the exception as well. Okay, now let me see how can I just create the example for this. Okay, let's suppose I have here the same one, str is equal to new string. Okay, and maybe object obj is equal to new object, sorry, new object. And here if we just print string of obj, what will happen here? Let's just execute it. See, cannot find the symbol. Okay, let me create the example for you. Okay, I think this example will not work, but when you try to cast the child, cast the parent class to child, that time you will get the class cast exception. Okay, I don't have the example ready. Okay, maybe in the next session I will create it and we will see in the next session. Okay, but theoretically you should know that the class cast means when you try to convert, or when you try to convert the parent class to child, that time you will get the class cast exception. Okay, now if we just go here, class not found exception. Okay, so here also one example is pending, and for the class cast exception also example is pending. Array index bound and null pointer exception already know. Arithmetic exception, do you remember the arithmetic exception that divide by 0?
Yes.
Yes, so that is the example for arithmetic exception. Okay, so these are some commonly used exceptions. Now what is the task for you? Okay, the task for you is that you need to create at least one example for each one of the exception. Class not found exception, you need to create one example. Null pointer exception, you need to create example by your own. Array index out of bound, for all 5 exceptions you need to create 5 examples. Will you able to do that? For the class
Yes,
not
ma'am.
found and maybe for the class cast exception, you can just leave, or you can just skip, because I have not explained it. right? So but in the next session definitely I am going to explain it, and then you can create the example for this. Okay, now let's go to the second one, which is throw keyword. Okay, should we start with the throw keyword, or you are feeling low? Let me know.
मॅम थ्रोज कीवर्ड बद्दल एकदा सांगा.
Throws keyword. Okay, see, let's suppose here we have seen the example of arithmetic exception. Okay, so let's suppose I have one number, and here I am just dividing 10 by 0. Okay, so if the exception is coming, we are handling it by using the try and catch block. So try, inside the try block we can write number is equal to 10 divided by 0. Okay, now we know that this may throw the arithmetic exception, so here we write it as arithmetic exception. Okay, this way. So even if the exception come, what will happen, it will catched in the catch block, and here maybe we can print like divide by 0. Okay, so this way we can print something. So this is one way to handle the exception. Okay, now I have explained last time or in the last session that the alternative for try catch block is the throws keyword. Now inside the try catch block we are catching the exception, or we are handling the exception by our own, right? This code is written by me and I am handling this arithmetic exception here. Okay, now but let's suppose if you don't want to handle the exception by yourself and you just want to delegate that responsibility to someone else. Okay, then what you will be doing, instead of handling it by using try catch block, you can use the throws keyword. You can just remove this and you can write here throws, and which exception you want to throw, arithmetic exception. Okay, so when you don't want to handle the exception by your own, you want to give that a task to the caller method. Caller method means what? For now, if you see, this statement is under main method, so this main method is a caller for this moment. Okay, let's suppose if this statement is in some other method, then that method will be the caller one. Okay, that method will be thrown this exception. Okay, clear now? If you don't want to handle the exception, that time you have to use the throws keyword and you have to throw that exception. Now what will happen here, compiler will compile the code. Okay, and at runtime, okay, maybe here this is not checked exception, right? That's why we are not getting any compile time error. But let's suppose if let's suppose here only if we create the this example, let's suppose file, I create one file, maybe new file, and here if we just try to create the file reader to read that file, new file reader, and here if we pass that file, okay, so immediately the exception will be coming, right? So here let's write one abc file. What exception? See here, file not found exception, and file not found exception is a checked exception. That's the reason at compile time only compiler is checking did you handle that exception or not. Okay, so if you see here we have not handled it, and how we can handle it, by using try and catch block. But now I don't want to handle it by using try catch block, so what I can do, at a method level, in which method we have created these lines, in the main method. So inside the main method only, here itself you can write throws file not found exception. If you throw it here, see, automatically compiler will shut the mouth. Why? Because compiler, very first compiler will come to this line and only it will check do we or did we handle the file not found exception or not. How? Try catch block or throws block. Anyway, if you have handled it, compiler will just keep quiet. And at runtime, if this file is not found, then automatically exception will be thrown from here itself. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Om, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you want me to go ahead or do you want to stop here? I actually have some more points. Let's suppose I wanted to cover this throw keyword, and I wanted to cover user defined exception and try with resource block. These three concepts I wanted to cover, but we are already out of time. What do you think? Or maybe
म्हणजे
tomorrow?
तुम्ही ठरवलंय ते देऊ ना. जे तुम्ही ठरवलंय ना आज कम्प्लीट करायचं ते कम्प्लीट करू.
करूया, but it will take almost 30 to 40 minutes because see, हे जे आहे ना कन्सेप्ट कोणती थ्रोज कीवर्ड म्हणजे काय असतं, जस्ट हाय लेवल मी सांगते तुम्हाला. Throws keyword is used to create the user defined exceptions. Meaning is that here if you see this file not found exception is not written by us, right? This is a inbuilt or the created by Java people. If you just go here, see here, this exception is created already in Java, okay, and this is present inside java.io package. But let's suppose we have some situation where we have to create some exceptions by ourselves, okay, or user defined exceptions we need to create, or if you want to throw the exception explicitly, okay, that time you will be using the throw keyword. Okay, now what is the meaning of throw means what? You want to throw the exception explicitly, okay, that time you are going to use the throw keyword. Okay, now let me just remove this, let me explain it. Maybe let's suppose, let me take one example here. Let's suppose here I have one variable int age, okay, and age will be 20. Okay, now if age is less than maybe 18, then what will happen? See, I'm taking the example of the marriage criteria. Okay, so see, in India for the marriage we have the criteria, right? If the girl age is 80 plus, then only she can marry. If for the boys, if the age is 21 plus, then only they can marry, right? So this is the criteria we have. Okay, now let's suppose if someone is there whose age is maybe 12, okay, then will like is it possible, like marriage is possible or not with this criteria? If the age is 12, then that person is not ready to marry, right? So you have to wait till your age is 18. Okay, so now if we have some application we are creating, that time we need to throw the exception if user is doing some unwanted thing, okay, which is not like not acceptable. So here if you see age is 12 and this person want to marry, okay, then what should happen? If the age is 12 which is less than 18, then here we should throw the exception. And what exception we should throw? Here we should write you need to, or you are not ready for the marriage. This way we can write some exception, right? Now if age is greater than 80, then only you are ready, right? So here you can just write you are eligible for marriage, right? So this way we can write. Okay, now see, this is just the system.out.println statements. We should not write it this way, we should throw the exception. If we are writing this way, okay, first let me correct this thing. If you are writing this way, then what is the meaning, right? If you just execute the program, what will happen? See here, you will not get any exception. Here only we are getting you are not ready for the marriage. Why we are getting this message? Because your age is 12. Okay, and here I have written if age is less than 18, then you are not ready for the marriage. Okay, so this message only it is displaying, but we should not display the message. Why? Because as soon as age is less than 18, then here exception should be thrown and your program should stop there only. It should not go to the next line. Okay, in this case, if you see, even if I write something here, okay, let's suppose this way, then also what will happen? Very first if block will get executed, this statement will get printed, and even you are not eligible for the marriage, still the remaining things will also be executed. If we save this and execute it, you will see the output. First statement, you are not ready for the marriage, and then second statement, this one also got printed. But if this condition is not satisfied, then only your program execution should be stopped. For that, what we will be doing here, we need to throw the exception. Okay, now how to throw the exception? Here we can write throw keyword, then new, and which exception you want to throw. Okay, for now let's suppose I want to throw this exception, arithmetic exception. Okay, so this exception we already know that. Okay, that's why I am taking the example of this. After that we will see how to throw the user defined exceptions as well. Okay, so this is already created exception and I just want to throw it explicitly. So how we can write it? Throw keyword, then new, and which exception you want to throw. Okay, and here you can even write some message also. Let's suppose throw arithmetic exception. Okay, if we save this and if I execute it, see here now what will happen. See, now your program executed abnormally, right? Here only you have got arithmetic exception, and which exception? Thrown arithmetic exception. Whatever you have written in the message, that only get printed here and your program execution stopped. So in this way, if you want to throw some exception explicitly, that time you can use the throw keyword. Now one more thing is that when you want to throw the user defined exception, that time also you can throw it by using throw keyword. Okay, now let's create the user defined exception first. Let's just delete this one. So how can we create it? Okay, very simple. You just need to create the class. Let's suppose class what exception we want to throw. Not eligible for marriage. Okay, so this exception I want to throw. Okay, so let me correct the spelling or you can ignore it. Okay, so not eligible for marriage exception. And one more thing, whenever you are creating the user defined exceptions, that time you always need to extend it with the exception class, or you always need to extend it with runtime exception. Okay, so this way whenever you are extending it with runtime exception, then you will create the unchecked exception, right? If you are not extending with runtime exception and you are extending with exception class, then maybe unchecked exception or checked exception. Okay, now very first thing, you need to create the class and you need to extend it with runtime exception. Then second thing, here you need to create the constructor. How to create the constructor? Same class name, whatever you have, that class name you have to write. And here you can write the message, whatever message you want to throw. Whenever exception will throw, whatever message you want to show, that message you can write here. So what I can write, maybe you are not eligible for marriage. Okay, so this way we can write the message. Okay, now sorry, here we cannot write, actually here we need to pass the parameter, so string str. Okay, and here you can just write super and whatever string you have passed. Okay, so very simple steps you have to follow to create the user defined exception. Very first you need to create the class, you need to extend that class with the runtime exception. Okay, two steps done, create the class, extend it with the runtime exception. Then you need to create the constructor. Inside the constructor you can write whatever message you want to show. Even you can write any number of things here, string or maybe comma, int, whatever you want to write, that you can write it here. Then you can show some message here directly this way, maybe yes out, or if you want to use the like the runtime exception messages or the format of already written exceptions, then you can write here super. What is the meaning of super? Remember, super means
Yes.
super means the
We
parent
call
class.
the parent class constructor.
Yes. So if you are passing here super and string, what will happen? It will go to the parent class. What is the parent class? Runtime exception. So whatever is the method you have inside the runtime exception, let's suppose go here. See here, runtime exception with string parameter. So here that your cursor will come from here, maybe it will go to runtime exception parent class. If we just go here, see what is the parent of runtime exception? Exception class. And then from exception it will go to throwable class, right? Because throwable is the parent of exception. And here it will fill the stack trace. Stack trace means what? Whatever is the error message you have, that error message will be filled, and here that message will be assigned here. Okay, so this way you will get the exception. Okay, now let's go here. So this way you can create the user defined exception. And now how to throw it? To throw the exception you can use here throw keyword, then new, which exception you want to throw, not eligible for marriage, and here you want to pass some message, maybe you need to wait for some more years. This way you can send some message. Okay, so that user can understand, right? Now what will happen here? If you see the program, you have given the age as 12. Here you have written the condition. If age is less than 18, then throw the exception. Which exception? Not eligible for marriage. If you go to the exception here, inside this line number 24, your cursor will come, and here it will go to the super class constructor, and then it will print whatever message you have given. Okay, if we save this and execute it, you will see now in the output. See here, what exception you are getting? Not eligible for marriage. And what is the message? See here, whatever message I have written, you need to wait for some more years, and that message is coming here. At which line? Line number 15. Are you able to understand how to create the user defined exceptions and how to throw it by using throw keyword?
Yes.
Dipali?
Yes, ma'am. थोडं समजलं ना.
ओम तुला
समजलं.
पूर्ण?
हो.
Can you explain to Dipali?
Yes, yes.
Yes, explain it now only.
Yes. ज्यावेळेस आपण ज्या थ्रोज कीवर्ड यूज करतो ना त्यावेळेस थ्रोज कीवर्ड मध्ये जे ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल एक्सेप्शन्स आहेत ते यूज करावे लागतात आणि ते मेथड लेवल वरती तिथे डिफाईन करायचे म्हणजे मेथडच्या म्हणजे बाजूला थ्रोज आणि तिथं एक्सेप्शनचं नाव द्यायचं आणि ज्यावेळेस आपण थ्रो कीवर्ड यूज करतो ना की ROW त्यावेळेस थ्रो न्यू आणि एक एक्सेप्शन जे आपण स्वतः डिफाईन केले त्याचा एक क्लास बनवायचा आणि मग त्या क्लासमध्ये पहिल्यांदा ते क्लास एक्सटेंड क्रिएट म्हणजे क्लास क्रिएट केल्यानंतर त्या क्लासला एक्सटेंड करायचं आणि एक्सटेंड त्याच्या पॅरेंट क्लास सोबत करायचं एक रन टाइम एक्सेप्शन किंवा असे वेगळे जर रन टाइम एक्सेप्शन केलं तर मग तिथं ती रेड लाईन येत आहे म्हणजे ते अनचेक राहते मग
येस
आणि मग त्यानंतर त्याला तिथं एक्सटेंड केलं त्या एक्सटेंड केल्यानंतर त्याच्यामध्ये पब्लिक आणि मग ते एक्सेप्शनचं नाव आणि पॅरामीटर त्याची स्ट्रिंग प्रोव्हाइड करायची आणि सुपर स्ट्रिंग केल्यानंतर मग ते ज्यावेळेस एक्सेप्शन कॉल करतं त्यावेळेस त्या मेसेजला सुपर म्हणजे ते पॅरेंट क्लास मधल्या मेसेज कडे जातात मग आणि ते स्ट्रिंग तिथून कॉल होते मग त्याच्यानंतर जी मेन मेथड आहे त्याच्यामध्ये आपण जी पण कंडिशन आहे ती लिहायची आणि त्या कंडिशनच्या बेसिस मध्ये रो न्यू आणि मग एक्सेप्शनचं नाव आपण डिफाईन केलेलं आहे आणि पॅरामीटर स्ट्रिंग म्हणजे जी पण तो मेसेज प्रिंट करायचा ती वाली स्ट्रिंग
परफेक्ट दीपाली समजलं
हो मॅम प्रत्येक वेळेस म्हणजे आपण युजर डिफाईन एक्सेप्शन क्रिएट करतो तेव्हा म्हणजे क्लासला एक्सटेंड करावंच लागतं
येस कारण जर क्लासला एक्सटेंड केलं ना तरच ते एक्सेप्शन बनणार आहे राईट सी हे नॉट एलिजिबल फॉर मॅरेज हे एक्सेप्शन नाही ना हा जस्ट क्लास आहे राईट पण आपल्याला एक्सेप्शन क्रिएट करायचे आणि एक्सेप्शन कधी क्रिएट होणार आहे जेव्हा तुम्ही एक्सटेंड करताय एक्सेप्शन क्लासला तेव्हाच जर तू एक्सटेंड नाही केलं okay let's suppose if you are just writing this way okay and if you are not writing something like this and if you are writing here maybe let's write something test or test okay what will happen here just notice see very first काय म्हणते इथे बघा provided not eligible marriage and required type throwable meaning is that whenever you are throwing something means throw means what throw the exception whenever you have to throw that time you need to throw the exception only and exception means what if we just go here and if you see here exception means what exception should always be of type throwable means जर त्याचा जर टॉपमोस्ट क्लास थ्रोएबल असेल आणि जर थ्रोएबल जरी नसेल ऍटलीस्ट त्याचे चाइल्ड क्लासेस तरी तुम्ही एक्सटेंड करायला पाहिजे म्हणजे एक्सेप्शन किंवा रन टाइम एक्सेप्शन किंवा कोणताही अदर एक्सेप्शन यू कॅन जस्ट एक्सटेंड इट then only that class will become the exception class otherwise that will be a normal class right so always you need to extend it with exception if you are not extending then here only you will get the error whenever you try to throw that time it will say that it is requiring a throwable type throwable means it is saying that this class should be of type throwable and you have provided not eligible for marriage okay so now to remove this error you need to extend here sorry you need to extend here with throwable okay or actually not throwable maybe with the exception okay if you provide here extend exception then only this error will be gone okay let me see why this error is coming unhandled exception okay add exception to method signature which exception not eligible for marriage see now do you just recognize what happened now recognize it see if we remove this okay and if you just see here very interesting thing is now you will understand see if I write here runtime exception you will see that we are not getting any errors okay before that Dipali is your answered is your question answered? तुझा क्वेश्चन काय होता की समज आपण जेव्हा पण काही युजर डिफाइंड एक्सेप्शन क्रिएट करतो तेव्हा ऑलवेज we need to extend exception or not. So answer is that yes, always you need to extend it with runtime exception or exception. Okay, now let's understand more deeply what will happen if you are extending with runtime exception and what will happen when you are extending with exception. Okay, so see here, when you are extending with runtime exception, then you will not get any errors because runtime exception and all its subclasses are unchecked exception, right? But as soon as you change it to exception class, then what will happen? Immediately you will get the error. And which error you are getting? Unhandled exception. Which exception? No, not eligible for marriage. You have extending this class with the exception, and inside the exception only you have the exception class, and also you have the error class also, right? Then inside the exception you have runtime exception or you have IO exception. So exception is not a fully unchecked exception, right? So here some classes are checked, some classes are unchecked exceptions. Checked exception means what? This IO exception, SQL exception, this AWT exception, these are checked exceptions, and runtime exception and all its subclasses are unchecked exceptions. Okay, so you have extending with the exception class, so automatically it is becoming checked exception. Okay, and that's the reason here only compiler is checking that did you handle this not eligible for marriage exception or not. If you have not handled it, then before executing your program you need to handle it. Now how to handle it? One way is that you can use try and catch block. Other way is that you can add this exception at a method level here itself by using throws keyword. See here, throws and which exception? Not eligible for marriage exception. Are we